Coming up on Regarding Men, when the womb is the least safe place for a baby.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Regarding Men, where we hold men in high regard and where red pill isolation comes to die. There it is.
Indeed it does.
I'm Janice Fiamingo, and I'm joined by my good friends Paul Elam of paulelam.com and Tom Golden of Men Are Good.
Men are good.
And today we're talking about the female accountability gap, or just the accountability gap for short. And guess whose gap? Guess whose accountability is minimized? And we're going to be looking at a number of articles that talk about women who smoke and drink and drug while they are pregnant, and the impacts of that. And we're going to note that in many of these articles, where they aren't purely factual articles discussing the effects of these behaviors, there is a very concerted effort to deny women's accountability and, in fact, to create women as the victims of forces beyond their control. So let's plunge right in without further ado, looking at the first article about the preponderance of women who continue to smoke while pregnant and the very deleterious effects on their unborn children. The article talks about the fact that smoking while pregnant is a cause of about 1,000 deaths of babies per year. Caused by sudden infant death syndrome, mainly, I think. And it also mentions the various, serious health impacts on children who do survive. Maybe you could bring up that first highlighted passage there, Tom. Yeah, there it is. The report also stated that each year, there it is, 1,000 infant deaths can be attributed to smoking. Of these, about 40% are classified as sudden infant death syndrome. And then more than 7,000 babies are born in the US each year with an oral cleft birth defect. And smoking increases the risk by 30 to 50%. This increased risk can be prevented by cutting smoking, but about 23% of women smoke during pregnancy. Wow. I mean, 1 in 4. That's pretty staggering statistic.
Have you ever seen a community announcement saying, "Women don't smoke during pregnancy. That's a bad thing for your baby"? I haven't seen too many.
Nope.
Not very many. No.
And maybe it gets overshadowed. I mean, after all, we're in a society, United States alone, 900,000 babies are cut out of the womb via abortion every year. So, I mean, you've got almost 1 million child murders. So
Yes.
these poor babies are getting birth defects or stillborn or sudden infant death syndrome related to smoking. That's a little tiny drop in the bucket compared to the damage that's actually going on. But we do have a taboo, I think, about talking about this because it does call into question, are we holding women to account?
I was going to say, there's one thread that ties those things together.
Yes.
And that thread is the accountability of women.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much non-existent.
It's pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking anyone who lives in Canada probably knows that over the last few weeks there's been a discussion about the discovery of about 200 graves at a residential school site in Canada. Residential schools were the schools that were set up for Indigenous children. And then some more graves have been found at another residential school site. Nobody knows much yet about how these children, it's not even, I don't think, known for sure that they are children, but it's assumed that they are. It's not known how they died, when they died exactly. These schools were in operation from the late 19th century to the mid 20th century. So not much is really known about these deaths, but certainly there has been a great deal of discussion about it, and a lot of anger and outrage and discussion about this as an act of genocide or part of the genocide of Indigenous people. And there was even some suggestion by some Indigenous activists that Canada Day, which was on July the 1st, should be canceled this year. As a result, there was a survey that showed, I think 14% of Canadians agreed that Canada Day should be canceled over this horrific thing. And it is a sad thing, I guess. I mean, we don't really know much about it, but it is just startling how much attention and grief and expressions of shame and horror has been expended over the last 2 to 3 weeks over these 200 graves, and what yet 1,000 dead children a year in the United States caused by something entirely preventable receives almost no attention at all. So it's
well said. That's right.
Yeah, so maybe we should.
That extends also to the problem of fetal alcohol effects and of opiate addicted women who, because opiates and alcohol and other drugs pass through the placental barrier and addict the child. We have this happening over and over again. But again, we can talk about something possibly horrible that happened 100 years ago and spend a lot of media and social time focused on the importance of whatever that event was, yet lives are being destroyed because, in some cases, the child that doesn't make it is better off than the child that does. When you have profound disabilities, people that are forced into leading dependent lives and become more or less, beneficiaries of the state for their entire lives, and we won't speak a word about their suffering and what they go through just to exist from the time they're born to the time they die. We won't even talk about their plight because we might inadvertently hold women accountable during the process.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
It is staggering. It really is. Yeah, let's look at the next article if we can, Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, so there it is. Drinking among pregnant women is up in the United States. Is there anybody who isn't aware that drinking during pregnancy has very serious side effects? And yet the article tells us that, I think it's 1 in 9 women drinks more than moderately, and 4% engage in binge drinking. And the article admitted that all of this data was gathered during a phone survey in which it's highly likely that those who responded to the survey underreported the extent of their drinking, precisely because we all know that it's a very bad thing to do. So, the effects of this behavior are, again, staggering. Incredible.
And as Paul said, the alcohol goes straight through the placenta and straight to the baby. And they said the babies, because their livers are not developed at that time, they're really vulnerable.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we had a bit of text from
We
that
got a
to
couple,
highlight. Yeah.
Drinking alcohol while pregnant can cause miscarriage, stillbirth, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, the report says. Alcohol in the mother's blood that passes through the umbilical cord to the fetus can lead to physical issues, behavioral problems, and intellectual disability.
And let's clarify a little bit when we're talking about what they say is behavioral problems. It is very strongly suggested that Nicholas Cruz, the Florida shooter who killed 17 people back, I think it was in 17 or 18, a few years back, killed all those kids he went to high school with. There's a lot of speculation that he has fetal alcohol effects or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And I would call mass murder a pretty significant behavioral issue. And this, again, I would love to have in-depth, lengthy, important discussions about this topic. Unfortunately, I don't really see it going anywhere. Um, I would bet that anybody in the mainstream that started taking a stand about what women are doing to their babies by poisoning them with
Right.
different chemicals and alcohol,
Right.
that career would be over uh,
Yep.
very shortly,
Yes.
because we can't offend some women, even if it means we destroy many lives
Yeah.
and kill people. It just
So,
that's how important it is not to bother women with the
Yeah.
truth.
oh, wait a minute, Paul. If this little fella had fetal alcohol syndrome, doesn't that make the mother accountable for the crime?
You would think in a
Hmm.
normal, sane world, we would assign responsibility. I mean,
At
she may
least
not be
some.
criminally liable, but at
Right.
least a public recognition that, you drink while you're pregnant, this is what it can lead to.
Yes.
These are the
Yeah.
possibilities. But again, our society, I don't see it ever having an honest discussion about any of these real tragic things that are going on while women are pregnant.
Right.
If the last article you pointed out said 23% of women smoke while pregnant.
Right.
If 5% of men were engaged in a behavior that was known to cause birth defects, we would have national outrage.
Yes, exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Or 2%,
Yep.
Yeah.
we would still have a
Yeah.
national. Matter of fact,
Those
if there's no evidence at all, we'll figure out a way to blame guys.
those toxic
Uh,
males
there's the toxicity
screwing
right
up the
there.
gene pool.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
instead, we just have this deafening silence. And this translates, it needs to be said, into a huge amount of human suffering.
Yes.
It is not fun to live with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. It's very challenging, very difficult. There's all kinds of hardship that can come into play with this. But again, if you've been affected by that, too bad. Nobody's ever going to be held responsible,
No.
um, because the
And
person who perpetrated this was female.
I
yeah.
thought this particular piece was interesting here too. Unmarried women were nearly twice as likely as married women to drink while pregnant, 15.2 to 8.6% respectively. Isn't that fascinating?
Hmm.
Unmarried women were nearly twice as likely as married women to drink while pregnant.
That comes from the "I don't need a man to have a baby" crowd.
And I
Hmm.
was thinking, could this also play into the fatherlessness pathologies that come up? I mean, following a fatherlessness, we know that there's causality in all of these different things that are associated with fatherlessness. But could it be that this is a precursor in some ways? You
Hmm.
know?
You're talking about an awful lot of people, the difference between 8.6 and 15.2. If you count all the pregnancies, and
Yep.
all the fetal alcohol effects that happen and the smoking related disabilities and birth defects, you're talking about a huge number of people. And yeah, I think it probably does, Tom, play into the fatherlessness
Yeah.
picture.
So many factors.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
yet right away, and when you put that statistic out there in this article, it can't just be left for people to absorb that factual reality. Right away, we have to have the follow up that tells us don't blame these women, don't
Right.
hold these women responsible. These women are primarily the victims. The higher prevalence of both drinking and binge drinking among unmarried women may be due in part to the financial stress associated with being the sole provider, as well as lack of social support, the researchers said. All of the research is so tainted by this gynocentric bias, by this inability to see women as adults who are responsible for their own choices and behaviors. It's just, you couldn't have a more striking example of the kind of empathy gap and certainly the accountability gap that is holding our societies in its grip. I was thinking, in relation to all of this, remember the Don't Be That Guy campaign from
Oh,
about, I don't know,
yes.
5 years ago or so, no,
Yes.
And
longer
"Don't
ago,
Be
I
That
think.
Girl" campaign.
Oh, we
Yeah,
should
and
That's
do
then,
right.
yeah,
some. We should do some
Yeah.
memes for that. That'd be great.
I mean,
Don't be
you
that
know,
girl. She's got a drink and a smoke. She's pregnant now.
exactly. Yeah. Don't be that drinking mother of a fetal
Really?
alcohol syndrome
Really?
baby. What that would be a campaign I could get behind. I
Me
mean,
too.
I have a lot of doubt about the efficacy and morality of public shaming campaigns of the sort that men have been subjected to for the past 50 years. But I have no problem shaming very specific behaviors
Right.
when it is known that they have devastating consequences on
Yes.
completely innocent and helpless victims, as in this case. And yet it's very doubtful that we'll see anything like that. I mean, nothing close to that even. I have occasionally in bars seen, warning ads about the effects of drinking on the unborn child, but it certainly isn't a topic of public discussion very, very often.
Right. And that
Yeah, I think
last,
we do need a campaign that says, just because it's your baby doesn't mean you can inflict birth defects. A poster campaign along those
oh,
lines would, I
nice.
think, probably be real appropriate. And who knows? This could actually end up getting women more, because we know women are definitely lacking in social support these days. There's just nothing going on for them. But perhaps if we were a little more honest about this problem and had a little bit more open discussions about it, there would be women who actually got help, because if they're drinking while pregnant, there's probably an alcohol problem.
Yes.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
would think so.
Yeah.
But that last sentence that you read, Janice, in almost every article we had, there was something like that in there,
Yeah.
which
Mhm.
let women off the hook.
Yeah.
It was like, well, in this case, they need more money, or they need more support, or they need
Yeah.
more this, they need more that. It's like, it's just so consistent. It's just amazing.
It's
Whereas
like the researchers are actually afraid to stand behind the full
the numbers,
implications of what they find.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's crazy. Should we
Yeah.
go to the next one?
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let's see what we got. Let's turn those off first. Oh boy.
Yeah. So here again, the drugging, the number of babies who are born addicted to either illegal or prescription drugs is quite significant. I think it's
Yes.
60,000. And they are the victims of something called neonatal abstinence syndrome, NAS, a group
Right.
of problems, horrible problems. Look at that: body shakes, trouble sleeping, breathing problems, poor feeding, and more. Awful. And it says that the instances quadrupled. So this isn't a problem that is just an ongoing problem. It's getting worse and worse between 2004 and 2013, resulting in a 7-fold increase in neonatal intensive unit care stays. And of course, there's also a potential for long-term health and development issues as the baby grows. Horrific.
Yes. And just to be clear, what we're talking about here are babies who are addicted. They're addicted because the mother ingested some sort of substance that addicted the baby, passed through the placenta. Baby got addicted and then has to be treated after birth. It's just mind-blowing how bad it is.
What an introduction to life that is.
Really?
To come into life in withdrawal from opiates. I can't imagine. I think it almost probably parallels circumcision.
I was just going to say that.
Introduce somebody to life at the edge of a blade. These babies are suffering, and these are long-term effects. When you have body shakes, trouble sleeping, breathing problems, poor feedings, and more, all going on in the first days of life, these have profound behavioral and physiological implications that go through the rest of their life. They don't
Yes.
just quit.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
cortisol levels go through the ceiling. The stress-related hormones get released and go through the ceiling during times like this.
Yeah.
And that has an impact on brain development. Of course, we're probably not even supposed to talk about that very much either, because God knows it might mean that women have to look at their behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Was this the article, Tom, that had the, I can't remember now whether it's this one or the next one, that also had the explicit statement about, oh yeah, it wasn't, I mean, that's also
Explicit
extremely
statement. What, Janice?
powerful. I was just thinking there's an explicit statement about how it's difficult for everyone getting off drugs. It's difficult for anyone who has a dependency to deal with it, but it's especially difficult for women. I think that maybe that's the next
I think
article.
that one's yet to come.
Yeah, yeah. But here's just the prevalence of this NAS.
Every 25 minutes.
25 minutes, a baby is born suffering from opioid withdrawal. Staggering.
And that's just the opioids. There's
Yes.
more to it than that.
There's methamphetamine, there's alcohol, there is tobacco, which has a profound impact. We're talking about millions of altered lives here every year.
Yeah. Crazy, crazy. Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Substance abuse.
Oh yeah, this was this. Yeah. This one, this one is just saturated in that women need special care. Men are just people. They don't have problems. They are problems, as we've said before. But women need special solicitude no matter what they're doing, no matter their own perspective on their problems, no matter their agency. So yeah, this is the one that talks about the gender differences in substance use and has this statement about how women need special care. Can we bring that one up?
Let's see.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a point to that too. It's something in spending 3 decades working with chemically dependent populations, this is something I saw happen over and over again. Chemical dependency treatment is predicated on personal accountability. It's like what they do in a treatment center, if it's a good treatment center, is they hold a mirror up of your life directly to your face and don't let you look away. It's like, this is you, this is what you're doing, this is the impact it's having on your family, your friends, your job, professional life, physical, whatever. And if you don't face this and take responsibility for doing something about that, it's going to probably kill you at some point or destroy your life even further. It's a
Yes.
great model to work with, and it's a beneficial model to work with. But what happened with women after the feminist takeover of the psychological establishment in the late 1980s, we started bringing in women to treatment centers. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about what they were doing. It wasn't about their decisions or their choices in life. It was about how men had harmed them. And we started giving these people who desperately needed to take responsibility for what they were doing with their lives and started giving them excuses coming
Right.
from the people who were paid to try to help them stop drinking and drugging. Telling them, well, it's not really your fault. You were abused in childhood. Your boyfriend was mean to you, so you drank a fifth of whiskey every day.
Yep.
Naturally, that's a response to an abusive boyfriend. We started playing sexual politics with people, and then would sit around and say, "Gee, how come the women have such poor outcomes in treatment centers? Can't understand why."
Yeah.
Um, but that again, this goes back to this has been going on a long time, and what we're seeing now is you see in the subtext of all these articles saying, really, well, women have special needs that we
Mhm.
apparently don't understand. So
Right.
let's not hold them to account for this.
And
It's the same thing.
everything you said is in this one little quote here.
Yeah.
You can see it. It's the same stuff. It can be hard for any person with a substance use disorder to quit, but women in particular may be afraid to get help during or after pregnancy due to possible legal or social fears and a lack of child care while in treatment. Women in treatment often need support for handling the burdens of work, home care, child care, and other family responsibilities. Women are
But guess
different.
what, folks? Women need to quit drinking and drugging is what they need.
But it is amazing to me how these little softenings
Yeah.
are throughout
Yeah.
all the articles we ever saw. It's like everyone gives women an excuse.
Mhm. Yeah.
Everyone. Oh God.
Yeah.
And it's not
It is.
doing women any favors.
Really?
No.
Exactly.
Well, that's it. And it's just as you're saying, Paul, everyone's sitting around saying, gee, these problems are getting worse. Why are they getting worse? Well, if the way that you help people stop is you force them to take absolute personal responsibility
Right.
for everything they do in their lives. If that's the thing that works, then why would you take that away? And that's exactly what all of these articles do in one form or another. It's really striking.
Yep. Yep. It's
It's
crazy.
a terrible problem when the people that we trust to help ameliorate problems are actually, per, you know, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Perpetuating them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Gynocentrism is just seeping in. It's just in every pore.
And
You
it,
know.
it comes back to this point that we've made many times before, in that the modern feminist movement, maybe even all feminist movements, certainly the modern one, is not really interested in any of the things it claims to be interested in. It's not really interested in the lives of women, in improving them. It's not interested in what it claims to call equality or the radical notion that women are human. It's not interested in any of those things, because even when it has evidence right before its eyes that its own ideology and the practices that it spawns are creating more victims, it keeps on. It is, as we've said, primarily interested in this idea that women should never take responsibility for anything. And this is most strikingly evident in the last article we're going to look at, which is
Yeah.
about a poor, a young girl. She's 7 years old at the time that this article was written, who's the agency caring for her attempted to sue the UK health system for criminal injuries compensation for what had been done to her by her drunken mother. This 7-year-old, this is now a somewhat old article from 2014, but she is completely mentally incapacitated. She will never be able to live a normal life. She's so severely damaged by the enormous alcohol intake of her mother, who was told that what she was doing was going to harm her unborn child, and continued to drink excessively throughout her pregnancy. And she was found not responsible, and there will be no criminal injury payout. I mean, certainly in Canada, and I think in the United States, and probably in the UK too, a woman who claims to have been sexually assaulted, makes a claim against a man, can collect criminal injury compensation whether or not the man is found guilty of sexual assault. So that's how willing the system is to pay out money to women making claims to have been injured by men. But in this case, this child who was obviously injured by her mother is not considered, an appropriate subject for that.
Yeah.
I love the judge's rationale in this case. The ruling he made was that, well, if you cause by your actions harm to a human being, then you're liable. But there's nothing in the law that says if you cause harm to a fetus.
Yeah.
Well, I would beg to differ. In many jurisdictions, one, if you happen to murder a woman who is
Yes.
pregnant, you can be charged with double homicide
Mm-hmm.
for that in almost any jurisdiction in the world.
Hmm.
But again, the difference is in that case, the identified perpetrator is the problem. But the moment that we start talking about holding women to account, the conversation just dissolves. It
Yes.
just absolutely goes away. And suddenly, this is just a fetus.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have rights, and it doesn't matter. Even though this poor young woman, little girl still at this point, will never have a normal life. She will always be dependent on the state. She will always be tremendously incapacitated when it comes to just her activities of daily living. She needs constant help and supervision. This was done by the direct decisions of her mother, in spite of the fact that she was advised against it. And the judge says, oh, well, too bad, doesn't matter. Your life is screwed, but we can't hold mommy responsible
That's
for it.
it. And here's the quote from the judge. But Lord Justice Tracy said an essential ingredient for a crime to be committed is the infliction of grievous bodily harm on a person. Grievous bodily harm on a fetus will not suffice.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is.
I'm sure the sisterhood will vote him back into his
There
voting
you
pool.
go. There you go. He's got
And
a pot. He's
the
got a pocket.
feminist advocates jubilated. Maybe we could see the quotation by feminist commentator on the judgment.
Yep. Yep.
Do you have that, Tom?
Which one?
The next text where we have the feminist advocate talking,
Yes.
Rebecca
There we
Schiller, there she is, said it was an extremely important ruling for women everywhere. Well, yeah, it is,
Not so
especially
much
for
for the
women
kids,
who have been
but-
harmed by the drinking of their mothers. The UK's highest courts have recognized that women must be able to make their own decisions about their pregnancies, they said.
Even if it
The
kills the
immediate
kid.
and broader implications of the case were troubling in seeking to establish. I thought she was going to say it's troubling to see that this is how a mother acted,
Yes.
knowing that she was harming her child. No, it was troubling that in seeking to establish that the damage caused to a fetus through heavy drinking was a criminal offense, the case called into question women's legal status while pregnant and right to make their own decisions, even if that involves killing or maiming for life their unborn children. That is what is paramount. That is the thing to be applauded and upheld. So here it is, the most clear demonstration you could find, really, that feminist ideologues do not give a damn about living, breathing women. They only care about holding this idealized woman on a pedestal to be never, ever responsible for any of the evil that she commits.
Right. Well said. Well said.
And I wish we could lay all this at the feet of feminists. I mean, there's certainly the onus is there in many ways, but this is a society that enables this stuff. You will have conservative, allegedly conservative judges coming down on the same ruling the same way because you just can't challenge women to act like grown-ups.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Very
well. On that note, I don't know if there's more to say about it. It's just pretty breathtaking.
Yes, it is. It really is.
And there was a lot of this we really didn't get into detail. Like I said, 900,000 abortions a year. I mean, we're talking about nearly 1 million lives snuffed out before they ever had a chance to make it. We can't hold women accountable for that. Our response to dumpster babies, to babies getting thrown in dumpsters by girls in their high school prom and other events in life, got turned into safe domain laws where you can try to, you can drop your baby off at a fire station or police station instead of throwing it in a dumpster. And I just read something not too long ago that pointed out that there's been no indication that that made any impact whatsoever on women who had, by murder, disposed of their children. So again, we said, okay, well, the poor things can't be held to account for murdering children, so let's try to make a law to get them to not murder in a better way, to make it appealing to them. Not, we're going to punish you if you murder a child, but here's an option for you, so maybe you don't have to murder the child, which we won't hold you responsible for anyway. I get really sad when I think about this stuff. I do. These are awful set of standards for a society to govern itself.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Indeed. Are we finished?
I think we are. Yeah.
I think so too.
Sadly, we are.
Indeed.
But a puta for the feminist and a puta for the judge that made that ruling.
Oh.
There she is.
There goes the judge and the feminist.
I wish we could do that with his job.
Indeed. Indeed. So men
are.
I knew we could fuck it up.
They're good.
Oh, God. On that note, we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.
See y'all next
Bye-bye.
time. Bye-bye.